Hi, welcome everyone. Give a couple more minutes, a couple seconds to let everyone join us. In the meantime, I'm connecting us to Facebook. Looks like we've reached a stable number. Perfect. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the California Department of Insurance, I am pleased to welcome you to our statewide webinar series, Insurance Made Clear, 2026 Consumer Learning Series. My name is Emmy, and I will be your host for this evening's session focused on auto insurance. Our goal today is simple, to help you better understand your coverage so you can make informed decisions for, for yourself and for your family with auto insurance requirements and the cost of evolving in California. We want to ensure you have the trusted resources and practical tips needed to protect your financial well-being. Next slide, please. Okay, this is an interactive session. We encourage you to use the chat feature to submit your questions at any time. Our team will be answering them throughout the presentation and during a dedicated segment at the end. So make sure to use your chat. This session is also being recorded and will be sent to everyone registered for this session. So make sure that you check your emails tomorrow. Next slide, please. So first, we're going to be joined by Brenda Caloca. She's going to go over the California Department of Insurance and who we are. Second, we'll be hearing from Richie Sayabong on auto insurance and overview. Third, we'll be hearing from Jose Solorio, fraud and scam prevention. And then fourth, we'll be hearing from Ket Goodwin, the California Low-Cost Auto Insurance Program. And Richie Sayabong will be going over resources. And then we'll close off with Q&A. So that's our agenda for the day, and I'll pass it back to Brenda. Brenda, can you unmute?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'm just going to cover some basic information of who we are as the California Department of Insurance. It's important to note we do not sell insurance. Of course, we are the regulatory agency. That means that we do regulate most lines of insurance. So if you have auto insurance, renters, car insurance, homeowners, life, annuities, those are some of the lines that we primarily regulate. We do protect consumers for fraud and abuse. That is the main priority. We are under the leadership of Commissioner Ricardo Lara, and that is his number one priority is protecting consumers. We do set standards for agents and brokers, licensing, and then it's also important to note that the main role is to ensure that insurers have solvency, essentially making sure that you have the money available when you are submitting your claims. We do perform market conduct reviews of the insurance companies to ensure that they're operating within regulation. So any complaints that you submit through us, those are also investigated and looked at. We do have a small police department that actually investigates and works with the prosecutor's office, the local ones, depending on the matter that is at hand, to prosecute insurance fraud. You can always call our office. You'll hear more information about that. And now I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Richie.
Thank you, Brenda. All right, next slide, please. Let's start with a quick question. How many of you have ever gotten into a car without thinking twice about whether you had insurance? Most of us do. But here's the thing. In California, driving without it isn't just risky, it's illegal. Let's talk about what is auto insurance. At its core, auto insurance is a contract. You pay a premium, and in exchange, an insurance company agrees to protect you from financial loss if something goes wrong. An accident, theft, your car getting damaged in a hailstorm, that's what it's there for. Now, California takes this seriously. there's something called the Financial Responsibility Law or Vehicle Code 16020, and it requires every driver to carry proof of insurance at all times. The minimum coverage the state requires is what we call 30, 60, 50. That means $30,000 per person for bodily injury, $60,000 per accident, and $15,000 for property damage. And if you're caught without it, we're talking about fines. We're looking at license suspensions and even having your vehicle impounded, which the fines vary based on your municipality, and it's not a risk worth taking. Next slide, please. So let's talk about required versus optional coverage. California really only mandates two things: liability coverage and the option to purchase uninsured motorist coverage. Liability, it covers the other person if you cause an accident. We're looking at collision. It is a coverage that pays to repair or replace your vehicle after it is damaged in an accident. Comprehensive, it pays for the damage to your vehicle resulting from a non-collision accident. Let's talk about uninsured motorists. So uninsured motorist coverage protects you if someone hits you and they have no insurance, which in California does happen more than you think. Uninsured motorist coverage, it pays for your medical bills and property damage if you're in an accident caused by a driver who has insurance, but whose policy limits are too low to cover the full cost of your losses. But as I mentioned, collision, comprehensive, medical payments, they are optional, but optional does not mean it's unimportant. So the comprehensive part, to go a little bit more into it, it does cover everything else, such as vandalism, theft, a tree falling on your hood. But if you are financing a vehicle or leasing your vehicle, your lender will most likely require both. The minimum California sets are a floor, not a ceiling. If you cause a serious accident and your coverage runs out, your personal assets are on the line. But if you are using your vehicle for work, deliveries, transporting clients, hauling equipment, your personal auto policy almost certainly won't cover you. Business use requires commercial auto insurance. This is especially important for small business owners who assume their personal policy has them covered. It typically doesn't. And for our rideshare drivers, you would also need a separate policy. But when it comes to optional coverages such as roadside assistance and rental cars, that's definitely optional. Especially the rental car comes in handy, especially if your vehicle is being worked on in the shop. Next slide, please. So some people don't realize this. You have real rights as a policyholder. You have the right to shop around and compare rates because premiums vary significantly between companies for the same exact coverage. You have the right to clear, understandable policy information. When it comes to auto insurance in California, consumers actually have some pretty strong protections compared to other states. A big one is Proposition 103, passed back in 1988, which gives the state power to regulate and approve insurance rates before they go into effect. That means your insurer can't arbitrarily raise your premiums without state oversight. So California also limits what factors insurers can use to set your rates. They have to base it primarily on your driving record, how many miles you drive, and your years of experience behind the wheel. Things like your zip code, credit score, or occupation can't be used as the primary factors, which is a pretty meaningful protection against discrimination. If you file a claim, California law requires your insurer to acknowledge it within 15 days and make a decision within 40 days of receiving all the necessary documentation. If they're dragging their feet or lowballing you, that can be considered bad faith, and you have legal options. You also have the right to get a clear written explanation if your claim is denied. You can dispute that decision. And if you and your insurer can't agree on a payout amount, you can request an independent appraisal. And if things really go sideways, you can file a complaint directly with the California Department of Insurance, which actively investigates consumer complaints against insurers. On the cancellation side, insurers have to give you at least 20 days written notice before canceling your policy, or 75 days if it's for other reasons other than non-payment. But on the flip side, you do have responsibilities too. You do have to keep your coverage continuous, report changes like a new address, or adding a new driver, pay on time, and cooperate if a claim is ever filed. But here's what I want you to walk away with. Insurance is both a legal obligation and a financial safety net. Don't just buy the premium because it is the cheapest option. Think about what you actually own, what you can afford to lose, and what your risk actually looks like. Review your policy regularly. Life changes and your coverage should keep up. And if you ever have questions about what you're buying, ask. That's what agents and the Department of Insurance are here for. Now I'm going to introduce Detective Sergeant Jose Solario, who has been with CDI for approximately 20 years with our fraud division and investigation department combined. He specializes in supervising and managing complex insurance fraud investigations. He will be sharing with us more information about fraud awareness and prevention. Sergeant Solario, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Richie. Good afternoon. My name is Jose Solario. I've been employed, like Richie said, with the Department of Insurance for approximately 20 years. As a detective sergeant with the California Department of Insurance, my primary duty is to supervise insurance fraud investigations. And quite often, people will always ask me, what is insurance fraud? Well, insurance fraud is very simple to define. Fraud occurs when someone knowingly lies to obtain a benefit or an advantage to which they were not entitled had they been true during a claim process. However, insurance fraud is also committed by someone who knowingly denies a benefit that is due to an individual, such as when you file an insurance claim, if your carrier denies you a benefit that you're entitled to, they would be committing fraud. The flip side of that is that when we submit a claim and we provide a material misrepresentation during the claim process, if it's material to the claim, then we are committing insurance fraud. Insurance fraud, it is a felony in the state of California, which is punishable up to 1 year in state prison or more, depending on the type of violation and the scheme that was committed. During our investigations, oftentimes we involve several investigations. One of the most common one that we investigate are stage collisions. Oftentimes, a stage collision is simply a pre-planned physical real collision that occur with one or more vehicles where these parties intentionally intended to cause a collision with an unsuspected individual, a victim. Usually, this victim doesn't know they're going to be the victim of a stage collision. And as a result of this incident, they are considered primarily at fault for the collision. It's not until we become involved during the investigation and we determine that there were other individuals that staged this collision that then at that point, we submit our findings to the local prosecutor office for criminal filings. When we obtain a criminal filing, if an individual was the victim of a stage collision, it is our duty to report it to the Department of Motor Vehicles for that traffic collision to be removed from that driving record so that your premium rates are not significantly impacted as a result of being involved in a stage traffic collision. Within the stage collision investigations, there are several schemes. One of them is the backing up accident collision. Typically, these occurred in parking lots simply because the number of vehicles parked is high, low speeds lead to a small damage. However, the individual that is just waiting for the opportunity to have a driver that is just pulling out of a parking spot run into their vehicle. When that happens, usually what the driver is trying to accomplish is that the victim believe it was their fault that they caused the collision. By doing so, the driver that is considered to be at fault doesn't challenge the collision, and they simply exchange information, tell the carrier how the collision occurred, and most of the time, the victim of the backing up accident is deemed responsible for the accident, and their insurance carrier ends up paying the claim. The next one that we often investigate is a hit and run type of collision. Usually this one is set up by the driver, him or herself, alleging they were victim of a hit and run. However, these vehicles perhaps already have the damage on the vehicle that we call pre-existing damage, or they cause the damage themselves. So they will just park the vehicle wherever they need to and then make a hit and run traffic collision notification to law enforcement so they can obtain a traffic collision report. And then they will file an insurance claim. The other side to this is that occasionally when this is staged, the individuals that will actually crash into the vehicle will leave the scene of the accident simply because they're involved in the traffic collision, setting up the traffic collision themselves. The next one that we at the Department of Insurance investigate is a pedestrian versus automobile collision. This one typically occurs in crosswalks simply because the vehicles are stationary. And when these distracted drivers don't notice, somebody, a pedestrian, will typically jump on top of the hood of the vehicle, claiming that the vehicle was in motion and run them over. Well, we capture a few of these in the past, and we have videos of them actually just jumping in the car, rolling off the car, claiming injuries. It is very important to know that the injuries don't exist. They just fabricate them just to get a insurance benefit that they would not be entitled if they were being honest. The next one is a sudden stop investigation that we conduct. This one involves multiple vehicles ranging from 2 to 3 or 4, where they line up in front of a vehicle they have targeted. Occasionally, there will be a vehicle on the left of that particular victim vehicle to prevent the victim driver to change lanes to the left or to the right. The lead vehicle will often just slam on the brakes, causing the middle vehicle and the vehicle directly in front of the victim vehicle to all slam on their brakes, causing the victim driver to slam on their brakes. Typically, the other vehicles will leave the scene, only leaving those two vehicles that collided. Well, it is a staged collision, and those drivers will exchange information. The victim driver, believing that he or she was responsible and caused the collision, will simply exchange information, and they'll notify their insurance carrier, take responsibility for a collision that shouldn't be their responsibility. However, it happens. Quite often, and this is the most popular type of traffic collision that we investigate with the California Department of Insurance, is the swoop and swap. This particular collision oftentimes occurs on the freeway, typically during morning and evening traffic. Why? Because they're traveling at a lower speed. This one is very interesting because it involves an organized group of individuals that will often have what we call a stager, a capper, an attorney, a doctor's involved. This one is very interesting because they will actually meet up prior to a collision, discuss how they're going to affect the collision. And usually the swatting vehicle will identify what car they want to target. And it's for different reasons. They've noticed the driver is distracted. They believe that this is a commercial vehicle with higher limits. And upon them advising each other through a hand gesture or a honk or pressing the brakes or flashing the hazard lights, two vehicles will move on each side of the victim driver, and then the squatting vehicle will suddenly stop for no reason, causing the victim driver to collide into the rear of that vehicle. The two blocking vehicles will continue driving, move on, but now we have what we call a staged collision, which is a swoop and swap. Well, the victim driver will exchange information, not realizing that they were the victim of a staged swoop and swat. The next one that we oftentimes investigate is, I'm sorry, one second. Next slide, please. This fraud scheme involves quite a few individuals. First, there's a planning. The suspects meet together. They discuss how the collision is going to be affected, where in the freeway, how they're going to communicate, and the capper, who is the organizer of this event, will give instructions. One vehicle usually has 4 occupants, 1 driver, 3 passengers. The other 2 vehicles will typically only have the driver. And the reason the squatting vehicle has 4 occupants is because each one of them will be entitled to file a claim against the victim's driver's insurance policy. That is why that vehicle has more occupants. Once they have set forward their plan, well, they'll drive throughout the freeway. The capper will identify who the victim is, whether it's a commercial vehicle, because they believe that the limits on the insurance policy will be higher than the normal insurance policy. They'll target any vehicle for any number of reasons. When we interview them, they will tell us the exact reason why they target that specific driver and or vehicle. Once the collision occurs, they will fabricate injuries. They will exchange information, and then the capper will visit an attorney who he or she already has a preset arrangement with that attorney. The capper will sell that particular case to that attorney, and the attorney will communicate with the insurance company to file the insurance claim. During the claim process, the attorney will seek the maximum benefits based on the limits of the policy. The attorney will refer the 4 occupants of the vehicle to visit a chiropractor seeking medical treatment. These individuals will typically visit the chiropractor once or twice, but they will submit bills that they receive treatment for numerous times to the insurance company to reach a maximum settlement. That is the scheme when it comes to organized safe collisions. These are the individuals that are involved. However, there's other types of collisions that we investigate. One of them being paper collision. The paper collision simply involves somebody on paper fabricating an accident that never occurred, but they'll report it to law enforcement as if the collision occurred. Why? Because they want to file an insurance claim for different reasons. Maybe they don't want the car anymore, and then they'll just crash it enough on paper. The insurance company will declare it a total loss. The next one is the phantom vehicle. Someone will stage a collision and argue that a car hit them, similar to a hit and run, and the vehicle disappeared. But the vehicle never existed. There was no collision, no nothing. They just believe, they don't believe, I'm sorry, but they just fabricate an accident that never occurred. Same as the other schemes, all they're seeking is to file an insurance claim. The next one is the drive down. This is where it requires multiple individuals to be involved. Typically on this one, what happened is they target a certain vehicle, the capper will identify the vehicle, and if the capper notices that this particular driver wants to turn right or left, the capper will motion to that unsuspected driver to go ahead and proceed with the turn. As soon as this unsuspected driver starts moving forward, the capper's vehicle, he or she will move the vehicle forward, preventing the unsuspected driver to continue with the maneuver. What will happen next is that another vehicle will crash intentionally into the victim's driver, causing severe damage. Well, at this point, the capper leaves the scene and this victim stays there believing that he or she caused this collision. But in reality, they were the victim of a staged drive-down traffic collision. Those are typically the most common stage collisions that we investigate here with the Department of Insurance. As an individual, what can you do to avoid or prevent being the victim of insurance fraud? First of all, be familiar with the terms and conditions of your insurance policy. Know what your limits are, know what your deductible is, know what you are entitled and what you're not entitled to. While operating a motor vehicle, we always encourage people to be aware of their surroundings, maintain a safe following distance, because if you are being set up for any type of this collision that we investigate, you will have ample time to apply the brakes and not collide into the rear of that squatting vehicle. So always maintain a safe following distance. Now with technology available and the cost being limited, you can install the dash cam on your vehicle. And the dash cam will record, most of the time it records while your vehicle's on. And when we investigate traffic collisions, these victims will actually have dash cam video that we collect, and we can see that the driver had no particular reason to stop. Okay, so that is a great investment. The one that we always hear our suspects telling us why they targeted a certain individual is simply because that driver of that vehicle was distracted. They were either on their cell phone, some were eating, grooming, applying makeup, you name it, and it's probably a good reason that you were distracted and they targeted you for that reason. Again, one of the other things that we caution people is when at construction sites, some individual is just directing traffic, sometimes for no reason, but they're trying to have you slow down to stage a collision. Be aware of that. Immediately following after the collision, make sure you call law enforcement. Occasionally, they will not respond simply because there were no injuries. However, call them and notify them. Why? That will create a log that you call at a specific time to notify them of the collision. During our investigation, it is very common for us to reach out to that agency and obtain those records to establish the time of the collision. Make sure, we all carry cell phones nowadays, so please make sure you take photographs of the vehicles depicting the damages. This way, and that the driver of the other vehicle will not create more damage to the vehicle or allege that there's more damages when in reality there were not. Take a picture of the license plate of the other vehicle. We want to make sure that that is a vehicle involved in the traffic collision. Take a photograph also of the other driver's license so that you know who the driver was. If possible, the passengers involved in that vehicle at that time. And of course, the scene. Why? It is important. Oftentimes they'll say that there are heavy traffic when in reality was no traffic at all. And that will help us evaluate the scene, meaning there was no reason for the collision. I'm sorry. And then once you take your photographs, obviously you're going to notify your insurance company of the collision. Please make sure that you do not allow a tow truck to take your vehicle to an impound unless you requested that tow truck. There are tow truck drivers out there that they'll listen to the scanners and arrive at the location of the accident and claim that they were sent there, and they will take your car and hold it hostage. So please make sure of that. Be aware if any individuals appear at the scene that were not involved in the collision and now they wish to be part of the collision, or they're soliciting for you to file a claim through their representation. If you seek representation, please make sure you verify that these medical providers and attorneys are licensed as a medical or practicing attorney in the state of California. Now, how do you report fraud in the event that you believe you are the victim of fraud? Obviously, you're going to call your insurance carrier, notify them of the traffic collision. They will conduct their investigation and they'll make an assessment. If they determine that insurance fraud was committed under the insurance code, they are required to report it to the California Department of Insurance for investigation. However, you could also report it yourself by contacting our consumer resources at 1-800-927-HELP. They will be able to help you. And if they also determine that potentially insurance fraud was committed, they will internally report it to us. You may also contact our regional offices throughout the state of California to report any incident where you believe you're the victim of insurance fraud. In the state of California, we have 9 offices. Please visit our website to determine which office has jurisdiction in the area where you live. And that concludes my portion of the presentation. And at this time, we will be hearing from Ken Goodwin, the authorized online producer for California low-cost insurance policies. He will be sharing with us more information about this low-cost auto insurance program. Ken, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Detective. Some great information. I appreciate that. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and this is a very important website. I'm going to use this for the presentation purposes because it has a wealth of information about this program. It's the California Low Cost Auto Insurance Program, which is unique in California. Not many states have this type of program. It was passed in 1999. And it's really designed, it's sponsored by the Department of Insurance, designed to provide income eligible good drivers with liability insurance protection at affordable rates. And so I'm going to go through the website. It's the mylowcostauto.com. You could bookmark that. We'll have that also mentioned, I believe, in the chat. But this website, you can visit and you can learn all about the program. I'm going to go to really who qualifies for this program. You have to have a valid California driver's license, meet income eligibility guidelines, own a vehicle valued at $25,000 or less, be at least 16 years of age. If under 18, must be emancipated, but have a good driving record or be a new driver. You can also hear on who qualifies. You can look at the income eligibility based on your household size. So there's a drop down. So if I was a household size of 1, for instance, I can't make over $39,900. So if I'm under that, then that's one of the first eligibility criterias. If my household is 2, you can see that goes up incrementally. So you can right there see from an income standpoint if you're eligible. In terms of the good driving record, you can only really have one ticket or one accident where there was no bodily injury in the last 3 years. That would be 1 point on your driver's license. So it's very similar to the good driving discount in California, except you can also be newly licensed. You can go to the coverages here, which explains what this program provides, which is up to $10,000 per person for bodily injury or death, up to $20,000 per accident, and up to $3,000 for property damage. So these are the split limits. They do meet the financial responsibility requirements in California. So although Richie had gone over the limits being 30, 60, 15, these limits do satisfy the requirements, would satisfy DMV. And if you were pulled over by law enforcement, this is a program that you can have and be legally driving on the road. The other 2 optional coverages, so that's what's required by law. The other two optional coverages is uninsured motorist bodily injury, not to be mistaken by uninsured motorist property damage. It's just not offered at this time by the program. But you could purchase this, and this would give you up to $10,000 per person or $20,000 per accident if you were struck by an uninsured motorist. That brings up, this program was really established because in California, it's estimated to approximately 4 million uninsured drivers. So 1 in 6 on the road don't have insurance. And so this program was really established to provide the opportunity for folks that couldn't otherwise afford auto insurance to now have something that they'd be able to be on the roadway legally with. The other option is medical payments, which is $1,000 per person. What about damages to the vehicle? Again, there's no physical damage, comprehensive collision, sometimes referred to as full coverage. With this program, it truly is liability only. You can, as you scroll down here, you can see what your annual premium is. This is based off of county. So there's 58 counties in California, and then they're grouped into 5 different rating bands. So unlike in the traditional private marketplace, it's really based off of your address and some other factors. If, for instance, I was to select Ventura County, where we're located, and I say I've been licensed for 3 years, I'm not 16 to 18 and not 19 to 24, you can see the annual premium of $272. That's important because a lot of times people are used to a 6-month policy, and this is an annual. So $272 for Ventura County. And again, you can go through and select your county and answer these questions here. If you haven't been licensed continuously for 3 years, then there is a surcharge, and that would go to $422. And again, this is just using Ventura County. Let's go to the home page here. That's the coverages. You from there can take the eligibility questionnaire, or you could also go to a local agent. We'll go to the eligibility questionnaire in a minute, but to find an agent, if let's say you didn't want to do this online and you wanted to go to a local agent in your area, you could put in your zip code, for instance, hit submit, and it will give you a list of all agents in that area that are certified for this program. It has their phone number, email, their address, English, Spanish, the languages that are supported. You can download that list or email it to yourself. And that's if you wanted to, go into an office and speak to somebody further about this. Or from the comfort of your home or at your office during a break, you can take this eligibility questionnaire right online. And it's pretty quick and easy. I mean, this is basically saying that you agree to the terms and conditions. This here has the general eligibility requirements that we talked about. The current value of the vehicle can't be over $25,000. That's also important. And you can't put more than 2 vehicles registered in your name through the program. So if I say yes to all of this, and then ask, am I a good driver? In the last 3 years, have I had an automobile accident where I was 51% at fault or someone was injured or killed? You cannot have more than 1 point. If for instance, you aren't sure about your driving record, they do have a link here that if you click on that, it brings you to the DMV where you can actually request your driving record. But if you know that based on this, you do qualify, you can click next here. Again, this is going to ask you about your income. So based on your household size, it will, dictate, what that threshold is. It's 250% above the poverty limit is how that's determined. Say yes. Commercial driving is excluded. So Uber, Lyft, rideshare programs, this is not the program for folks, or if they're using it for other types of business exposures, but there are some acceptable business use situations such as housekeepers, home health care, handy person. So these would potentially still qualify for the program. And then here at the end, you're just going to put your age, whatever that is. You don't have to choose not to identify. If not, how did you hear about it? And then click next, put in the zip code. And here you can continue to apply online. or this is the follow-up on your own. Again, if I click there, that's like at the beginning where I put the zip code and I would be presented with all of the local agents in my area. Or again, I can continue online. There's two options: doing a quick application, which is just putting some limited information into the application. It's pretty quick in terms of just the information that you're going to be providing. Or you can spend a little bit more time and do a complete full application, which you would be putting all of the necessary information required for that policy to then be reviewed by a certified agent and issued. Depending on what I select, I'd hit submit, and from there it would guide me through the rest of the application. I'm not going to do that because it would require us to put some information in from there. But of course, you can after go on there. Here, there, like I said, the rate calculator. There's FAQs, so frequently asked questions, and everything, like I said, it can be found on this website in terms of the program. It's a great opportunity for folks that, again, could not otherwise be driving legal on the roadway. So been really proud to be part of this to help a lot of folks enroll in this program. So again, I would encourage you to visit the milowcost.com website. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Richie.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you for sharing all that wonderful information about the low-cost auto program. So we talked about what insurance is, what you're required to have, what your rights are, fraud prevention from Detective Solario, and of course, our low-cost auto program from Ken. But what happens when things go wrong? When a claim is denied, delayed, or you feel like your insurer just isn't playing fair? That's where the California Department of Insurance steps in. And I want to make sure everyone knows when to reach out. So CDI isn't just a regulatory agency sitting in Sacramento. It's a consumer protection resource. Here are the kinds of situations where reaching out really makes sense. Your claim has been sitting unresolved for weeks with no clear explanation. Your insurer denied your claim, but didn't give you a solid reason why. You're having a dispute over how much your claim is worth. You believe you were dropped unfairly or your rates were raised without explanation. Or maybe you're just trying to understand your policy and feel like you're just getting the runaround. Then, of course, reach out to us with any questions or to report any signs of fraud or scams. So these are legitimate reasons to contact CDI. You don't have to be in a crisis. Even general policy questions or concerns about how your agent treated you are fair game. Next slide, please. So filing a complaint is simpler than most people expect. You can do it online, by phone, by mail, or even use our live chat feature on the website. But before you reach out, though, you want to have a few things ready because the more organized you are, the faster we can help you. Next slide, please. Before you reach out, we want to make sure you have your policy number on hand. Write down the name of your insurance company and your agent or adjuster if you've been working with one. Put together a timeline. When did the incident happen? When did you file the claim? And what response have you have received? And when? Gather any documents, denial letters, emails, photos, estimates, medical bills, anything that is relevant to your situation. The more clearly you can tell the story, the better position you're in. Right. So we're going to talk about auto mediation. So auto mediation in California is essentially a way to resolve a dispute between you and your insurance company without going to court. Specifically, it applies when your vehicle has been declared a total loss and you disagree with the settlement amount your insurer is offering you. Here's how it works in simple terms. Your car is totaled and your insurer says it's worth, say, $10,000, but you believe it's worth more. You don't have to just accept that number. You can request mediation through the Department of Insurance, and a neutral third party will step in to help both sides come to a fair agreement. The mediator doesn't take sides. Their job is simply to facilitate a conversation and help both parties reach a resolution. It's much more of an informal and faster process than filing a lawsuit, and most importantly, it's free to the consumer. It's important to understand that the mediator doesn't make a binding decision the way a judge would. The idea is to encourage both sides to negotiate in good faith and land on a number that feels fair. If mediation doesn't resolve the issue, you still have the option to pursue other legal avenues. For everyday consumers, mediation is really a practical tool because it gives you a fighting chance against a large insurance company without needing to spend money on legal fees. It puts you at the table with your insurer on equal footing, with someone there to make sure the conversation stays fair and productive. Let's talk about the California Lemon Law. It's also known as the Song-Beverly Consumer Warranty Act. It's designed to protect consumers who purchase or lease a new vehicle that turns out to have a significant defect the manufacturer can't seem to fix. If your car has a substantial problem covered under the manufacturer's warranty, it hasn't been repaired. After a reasonable number of attempts, you may be entitled to a replacement vehicle or a full refund. But California's version of the Lemon Law is actually one of the strongest in the country. It covers not just new cars, but also used vehicles that are still under the original manufacturer's warranty. The law also requires the manufacturer to pay your attorney fees if you win your case, which means you can pursue a claim without worrying about the cost of hiring a lawyer. Generally speaking, 4 or more repair attempts for the same issue on a vehicle or a vehicle that has been in the shop for more than 30 days total are often used as benchmarks when determining whether a car qualifies as a lemon. And then I'll pass it on to Brenda to talk about some of our resources.
Thank you, Richie. And so very quickly, we do have various resources available to you. You can log on to our website to look at a comparison tool with prices. You can also log on to our website to verify your agent's number, make sure that they're still licensed and that's active. And also you can find informational guides that will give you just more in-depth information that's in relation to auto repairs and what are the key things to look out for as you're doing so. If you are interested in reaching out to our department as well, if you don't quite understand your policies, you can definitely reach out to our department and we can assist with getting you connected with a specialist who can go over your policies and help you further understand what those exclusions are and really get a real sense of what you're really covered for. These are our social media handles, so feel free to follow us. One of the key things we want to emphasize is to go ahead and sign up to our consumer alerts. Want to make sure that you stay informed, stay connected. We have new regulations. We have consumer safety education, fraud prevention, and most importantly, be informed of any unfair and deceptive businesses practices that are trending. Really stay in the know of what is happening with the insurance industry and just things that you should be aware as a consumer. So you can scan this QR code and it'll take you to sign up to our free consumer alerts. Now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Zulemi.
Thanks, Brenda. We do have one question in the chat, and we do have submitted questions as well. So let me bring up the one in the chat first. Hello, I am a Palisades fire survivor with a huge homeowner's insurance claim. Recently, a piece of plywood flew off of a pickup truck and hit my car, damaging the sensors on the front and side of the car. I'm afraid to file a claim on my auto insurance given I already have a homeowner's claim. Does it matter if someone has 2 different types of claims, or should I try to pay for the damage myself? And who wants to answer this? Brenda or Ken? I see you unmuted.
I mean, I can answer generally speaking that given that plywood flew off a pickup truck and hit your car, I would work with your insurance carrier because that may end up being more of a comprehensive claim. as opposed to collision, which may not go against you. But again, that ultimately you'd have to work that out with your carrier. But based on how you're describing that, I would, if you were my client, I'd be advising you to probably file that claim because, that's not necessarily your fault that something flew off and hit your car. So that would be my general guidance.
And you're more than welcome to submit a claim through our department or just call our general number to look at the specifics in terms of what coverages you actually have and what are your limits to see if it's something that you want to move forward with. Doesn't matter the type of claims you have, the number of claims you have, so as long as they're separate.
Thank you. And we do have a comment saying, thank you for the explanation on the difference between comprehensive and collision. Much appreciated. So thank you for that. Let me see, we do have one question about my low cost auto. Ken, if someone is receiving a Medi-Cal or CalFresh, could that be good enough to qualify?
Yeah, the good news is we no longer require any income or any supporting income documentation. In the past, that we needed some type of documentation. In that regard, though, that would qualify, and we wouldn't need anything further.
Perfect. And we have submitted questions now. I'll go over a couple of these. How long does a new California resident have to transfer their insurance to reflect their new residence? This is a pre-submitted question, so Richie, I see you're muting.
There we go. So it depends on the insurance company. The Department of Insurance does not enforce that.
One more. We have a chat question. Missed the first half. Will a link to this recording be sent out? Yes, everyone who registered will receive a link to this recording tomorrow, but if you want to access it today, you can use our Facebook to access that. It'll automatically post there. Thank you. One more question. If insurance is required, why do we have to buy uninsured driver insurance?
I can answer that. For uninsured driver coverage, it protects you if another driver causes an accident but doesn't have enough insurance to cover your damages. It steps in to pay the difference up to your policy limits.
And I see one more. Why does Consumer Reports say Tesla Model 3 is highest cost to insure?
So typically when it comes to insurers, they're typically capturing the combined effects of expensive repairs, specialized parts, advanced technology that's really costly to fix. The car is relatively high value and the location options available as far as repair shops. So, when you get a Tesla repaired, they mainly go through Tesla versus any other shop.
That makes sense. Okay, we got one more submitted in our chat. I think might be for Detective Jose Solorio. I was hit by someone who said she had no insurance but would pay for damages. She gave me her phone number and also let me take a picture of her driver's license. She then avoided all contact with me. The damage was under my deductible. I contacted the CHP and they said since we had communicated, there was nothing they could do.
Unfortunately, that is the reason, like Richie mentioned, the importance of having uninsured motorist coverage. And in this situation, there's very little to not very, we can't do much about it simply because they haven't committed insurance fraud in that sense. So the only remedy that I can think of is taking them to small claims courts and seeing if you can get some sort of settlement.
Thank you so much. And I think that pretty much ends it on the Q&A. I'll pass it back to Brenda.
You, Salemi. Lastly, before you go, I do want to make sure that you do save the date for our upcoming webinars. We do have a variety of them coming up within the next few months. Our next one will be in April. We will be focusing on life annuities and our seniors. Residential insurance will be coming up thereafter. On August 19th, we'll have the health insurance. And lastly, October 24th, we will have our business webinars. They'll be focused on those. So feel free to please share it with your contacts. It'll be a wealth of information. We encourage you to stay connected. Lastly, we want to thank you all for your time tonight, but most importantly, we really value what you think. We value how much we can get the information out. We want to make sure that we're effective in doing so and making sure that it's engaging. So we ask that you please take the quick survey that will be popping up right after this webinar concludes. We really appreciate your feedback. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you to our panelists. We've had a great evening. You all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.